Well, thank you everyone for being on time. Welcome to Reveal My DNA report review. Today is the first class of the course, which is a running course that goes through the entire Reveal My DNA test. Um, you can jump in at any time. Each class is independent of every other class. Therefore, if you've never attended one of these before, you are still going to get all the information you're going to need. Today we're starting with the beginning of the test, which it looks like this, the comprehensive health report. And we're going to start with nutrient metabolism and digestion today. And we're going to talk about the beginning of the report, which is here, which is also known as our dashboard. Now, the first thing you're going to see in your dashboard is your APOE status. And what this signifies is the apolipoprotein E. Sorry, let me get the chat box open. If you have any questions at all, please throw it in the chat and I will answer as we go. APOE is a lipid binding protein that transports triglycerides and cholesterol in multiple tissues, including the brain. The E4 allele is common in hunter-gatherer communities, while the E3 and E2 alleles are most common in agricultural communities. Now, this is, of course, going back in time and where we genetically evolved from. So it doesn't matter where you live now, but it matters where we came from in terms of our DNA. So the first thing we're going to see is this APOE status, and you're going to be told if you're a farmer from an agricultural community or a hunter-gatherer. And again, this is your DNA, not where you live now or how your family's been living for the last 100, 200 years. And what is important to note is that if we have an E4 allele, we've got an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. However, what's important to note about this test is one is not diagnostic. We're not diagnosing anybody with disease. Secondly, if you find a gene or a SNP that might have predictive future outcomes for you, it is always going to be linked with some type of action. So what do I mean by this? Well, for example, right below this, you see the protein requirements. For this person, they are average. So it gives you your information of what to do. Your requirements fall on the average side of the spectrum. Approximately 18-20% of your total caloric intake should be protein. That's your action step based on your DNA, based on your genes. But what I want to do is talk a little bit more about APOE status, allele 4 specifically, and how to support the folks that you're going to get in your testing that might have 1 or 2 allele 4s. So let's wrap up 3s and 2s first. So here we have 3-3. It's the most common APOE genotype, and it has numerous benefits. As you can see here, extended cognitive fitness and enhanced expression of anti-aging sirtuins, improved HDL and LDL profiles, improved ability to repair synapses and neuroprotection, higher viral protection, and a higher response to plant bioactive compounds. That's basically chemicals in plants that provide nourishment for us. So that's E3 and E2. We're going to talk about E4 in a minute, but first I want to finish the digestion metabolism section, and then we're going to jump back and do a bit on E4. Okay? If you have any questions, please type it in the chat box. First, we're going to start, as we can see here, your protein requirements. We just mentioned that. And these are going to be all over the place. You're going to see multiple different combinations of these. And then if the need for protein is higher, increased or high, it is going to give you very specifically what you're going to need there. Next is your carbohydrate requirements. First of all, this person is normal. So their intake range is based on the latitude of their ancestors, just like your APOE status, and whether a hunter-gatherer diet or a modern agriculture diet made a larger imprint on your genes. So this person's genotype combo is associated with improved carbohydrate metabolism, allowing for up to 40 to 55% of their total calories from carbohydrates if desired. They're going to do just fine metabolizing them. And you can see the amount based on 2,000 calorie diet. Now, all of these, if it comes in very low or low, will change based on the DNA requirement. And if you want to do the math, you just divide it. If you're doing 1,000 calorie day diet, very restrictive, you'd be doing 100 to 140 grams a day. If you're doing 1,500, just do the math, right? So 150, so on and so forth. Next is refined carbohydrates. These actually make a big impact on our metabolism. The difference between responses in individuals in refined carbs have been linked to a genetic adaptation occurring during the agricultural age when human beings started refining carbohydrates and consuming them in great quantities. Your genotype, this person's genotype, is associated with an adaptation for lowering the sensitivity to refined carbohydrates. Now, again, I want to pause for a moment and just let you know, if it were a slight risk or a high risk, we would have action statements here for you to do. And first of all, I would say, reduce your total amount of refined carbohydrates. And it's not just white flour and white sugar, but it's refined corn, it's refined rice, it's high fructose corn syrup and sweeteners. It's things that sugars from soda that will impact your metabolism. And so as you see here, protein, carbs, next is fats. This is how your body metabolizes the foods you eat. And so if you're able to follow this, you're going to see a reduction in body fat and overall benefits in health. So this person has a high need for omega-3s. And as you can see, when there is something high here, I'm going to highlight that for you. There's a lot more in this box. So when someone comes in less risk or no risk or average, there's very little information, but it's also because we don't want you as a practitioner to get bogged down in a box that doesn't have anything important to relay to the patient particularly. So this person does have a high requirement for omega-3 fats, and you can see 1.1 to 1.6 grams per day as a combination of ALA, EPA, and DHA. And so, these fatty acids, and they're essential for your brain, your eye, and cardiovascular health. So this person's genotype has a combination associated with higher need for EPA and DHA coming from omega-3s. Some specific information here based on their APOE status. And for APOE4, they need fish supplements that do not appear as effective as phospholipid-based EPA and DHA found in fish and fish roe. So APOE4 people actually do better with eating the fish and caviar as opposed to supplements. All right, that's just what some data says. E4 carriers may have impaired transport of the free DHA and require phospholipids for successful transport. So sometimes supplements don't have those phosphorus-based lipids, and getting it from the food is best, or supplement that's phosphorylated. Next is monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. Their traditional total in fat intake ranges on the latitude of where their ancestors are from, with as low as 25% consumed in countries closer to the equator and up to 55% of total calories from fat being consumed in northern latitudes. It makes sense, right? The closer we were to the equator, less body fat we need to stay warm in the winter to survive. And fats were burned effectively as nutrients, as energy sources in northern climes. So it was very important to get that fat in them because they're burning more calories trying to stay warm. Your genotype is associated with a higher emphasis on monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats from olive oil, avocados, poultry, nuts, and seeds. So we're going to guess maybe this person came from a more, latitude, maybe a little closer to the equator. Think Mediterranean diet here a little bit. Next, saturated fat from red meat. So, sorry. Based on their genotype, they should aim to get less saturated fat in their diet from red meat. It's just how fast they're going to metabolize it and deal with it. And then, so what we're saying here is limit your red meat consumption to twice a week if you're consuming fatty meats. If you're getting a very lean cut, I don't think it'd be harmful to increase that a little bit. Saturated fat from dairy is also low for this person. So you can see monosaturated, polyunsaturated fats from olive oil and nuts and seeds are very good for this person's metabolism, and fat from meat and dairy not as quickly metabolized. So they can still get, butter and cheese and other things in the diet, cream, but they want less than 22 grams per day. Next thing this test will tell us in this top dashboard on the metabolism section is celiac disease. Celiac disease is that immune reaction to eating gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. And published research shows approximately 30% of the general population have variants in the celiac disease risk gene. It's called HLA-DQA1 through HLA-DQB, yet only 3% of these individuals actually develop celiac disease, which is good. So, there's this range, right, between celiac disease over here, gluten sensitivity or allergy, and just, little gluten intolerance. So, we carry this and then perfectly fine. So there is a range. We'll see that the diagnosis for celiac is more than 2 times higher in women than men. And on a global level, rates of celiac disease are not related either to the amount of wheat consumed or the prevalence of this gene worldwide. So anyway, if you're over here, high priority, we're going to talk to you might want to talk to your doctor about further testing if celiac disease is suspected. If they're coming in with gut health issues, that's why they came in the first place. And you said, let's do a lifestyle DNA test. Let's see where we stand on all these different macronutrients and micronutrients, so on and so forth. So next is the micronutrient requirement section. And that will be next class when we get into plant-based chemicals and micronutrients. And now we're going to talk about APOE4 and Alzheimer's. Anybody have any questions about the metabolic section of this test? Protein, carbs, fat intake, and celiac. Just type it in the chat box. All right, no questions. We're going to keep moving. Oops. Share my screen. All right. Here we go. So now we're going to talk about that APOE4 section from the top that we already introduced to you. We talked about E2 and E3, but we didn't talk at all about E4. Because E4 provides the genetic risks for Alzheimer's disease, and most importantly, symptomology around it. So we really want to address that as well. So again, Reveal My DNA. It's a lifestyle DNA company. We're based out of San Diego, California. It's a one-of-a-kind DNA report that for healthcare professionals like yourselves It has an exclusive contract with Gene by Gene, the state-of-the-art DNA testing laboratory in Houston, and we use advanced testing methods to get the most accurate results for you and your patients. So, when we're doing targeted NGS, advanced NGS targeting, we're going to have the ability to screen hundreds of thousands of genes, um, and it has a very high discovery power, a very high variant resolution, and very easy to scale. Um, so anyway, we feel it is the very best testing in the world, and that's why we utilize it. And it is the very best. So there. There's a question. This, I guess, harkens back to the protein and fat metabolism. Are there studies on differences between effects of feedlot meat and dairy versus grass-fed, since fat nutritional profiles are a lot different? There are a few, and specifically when it comes to eggs, we did the Reveal My DNA test has suggestions, and we'll go back to it if we have time, recommendations of people with their fat intake, omega-3 intake, have been shown to do better eating pasture raised eggs versus conventional. So pastured eggs are free range eggs, changes the nature of the fat content makeup of that egg based on the lifestyle of the chicken. So yeah, it's very important. So what are we looking at? Insights found in looking at 92 genes and SNPs to provide your unique health needs. The reported findings provide specific genotypes that show very specific metabolic needs, as we just talked about, and then lifestyle recommendations. And then we're going to have specific genotypes that show very specific disease risk assessments. Remember, this is not a diagnosis, it's a risk assessment. And it's including, but not limited to, Alzheimer's disease, right? So here you see SNPs. What is that? That's a single nucleotide polymorphism. It's a variation in DNA that occurs when a single nucleotide is replaced by another. These metabolic needs fall under macronutrients, micronutrients, minerals, plant-based phytochemicals, exercise, and sleep, in terms of these lifestyle recommendations right here. So I want to quickly do a very short review of understanding Alzheimer's disease. It's a progressive neurological disorder that causes memory loss, cognitive decline, and change in behavior. Most commonly presenting itself in the form of dementia, a group of conditions characterized by the decline in cognitive function and the ability to perform daily activities. In Alzheimer's disease, abnormal protein deposits in the brain lead to the gradual destruction of brain cells, affecting memory, thinking, and behavior. And over time, the disease worsens, and eventually interfering with the individual's ability to carry out simple tasks and communicate effectively. Genetic predispositions play a significant role in Alzheimer's risk. While age is the most significant risk for developing Alzheimer's, genetics play a crucial role, particularly in cases where the disease manifests at an early age or runs in the family. So how are we going to get this? We're going to look at that APOE genetic status. So this is a brand new study. This came out last year, and it defined that APOE4 that we just talked about in our other section, genotype, and its significance in Alzheimer's risk. So this new data is coming out because we have this DNA research. The study concludes that the APOE4 homozygotes, that means two of the same, E4, represents a genetic form of Alzheimer's disease, suggesting the need for individual treatment prevention strategies, clinical trials, and treatments. And prevention strategies, well, we got a lot for you. Now, the findings reveal that almost all APOE4 homozygotes exhibited Alzheimer's disease pathology and had significantly higher levels of Alzheimer's disease biomarkers from age 55 on compared to people with the APOE3 homozygotes. So people 3 E3s. By age 65, nearly all had abnormal amyloid levels in their cerebral spinal fluid, and 75% had positive amyloid scans, with the prevalence of these markers increasing with age, indicating near full penetrance of Alzheimer's disease biology in people with APOE4 E4 homozygosity. Um, so let's talk about APOE4 and homozygosity and Alzheimer's risk. So stepping back here, why are we diving so deeply here? Because this part of the test, this alone is a great reason to suggest this test for any one of your patients and clients, because we're going to have some wonderful strategies for them. It's, ignorance is bliss, maybe, but ignorance can also be harmful. So let's talk about, the opposite of that. Knowledge is power. And once we know what we can do and what we can do about it. So again, you got this APOE. So we talked about what apolipoprotein E is. It's that lipid binding protein. It transports triglycerides and cholesterol in multiple tissues, including the brain. The E4 allele is common in the hunter-gatherers. We know that in the other section. And E3 and E2 are from agriculture communities. So they seem to be negatively impacted. People with APOE4 seem to be negatively impacted even more by the standard American diet and need more protein and less carbs, and because they're hunter-gatherers. And if you see their protein and fat profile, it's going to be really reverse of what we just saw in that one case. You're just going to have high protein, low carb, low refined carb, high fat needs. So there's the combination can be any combo of APOE 2, 3, or 4. Each person inherits 2 copies of the APOE gene, one from each parent, resulting in these combinations E2, E2, E3, E3, E4, E4, as well as, and those are all homozygote combos. And then we have the heterozygotes, which are E2, E3, E2, E4, E3, E4, and 4, 3, 3, 2, obviously. So when you get to anyone with the 4, you've got an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. And then if you 2 E4 alleles, even a higher risk. So let's talk about this. 25% of people carry 1 copy of APOE4, and 2 to 3% carry 2 copies. APOE4 includes trade-offs. They have strengths and weaknesses because they're hunter-gatherers, and they inherited those genes from that period and continue to persist into the modern era. The highest negative impact are those with Caucasian and Asian ancestry from the Northern Hemisphere. So I guess those Australians are in luck. I don't know. So again, the exact mechanism in which the APOE4 gene increases Alzheimer's risk are not fully understood. But researchers believe that it may contribute to the accumulation of amyloid beta plaques and tau tangles in the brain, which are hallmark features of Alzheimer's disease. And APOE4 may also impair the brain's ability to repair itself and maintain neuronal function. This is also very important. Not everyone who carries the E4 variant will develop Alzheimer's, and not everyone with Alzheimer's disease carries an E4 gene variant. Other genetic and environmental factors also play a role in the development of the disease. However, the presence of the APOE4 gene can help identify individuals who may be at increased risk, allowing for early intervention and lifestyle modifications that may help reduce the risk or delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease. And that's the ballgame. That's it. That's all you need to know. That's why it's great to screen everybody. So, you know, if we find out someone has 1 E4 or 2, if we can have immediate intervention with lifestyle modifications, there it is. That's, worth its weight in gold. That is what we're doing here. That's why we're all seeing patients. This is what we're here for. Yep. Continue on. Sorry. Yep. Here we are. So we just saw that report where the person was an E3, E2. This person is a hunter-gatherer. They're an E4. So you saw what the report looked like with an E3. This is what the report looks like in E4, right? So there's a lot more information because we want early intervention strategies. We're going to talk about what the strengths are for being a hunter-gatherer, and there are many, and that's fantastic. And then some of their weaknesses and how, they get negatively impacted and affected by diet, specifically in other lifestyle choices. So, we're not going to read this whole thing, but you get the point. There's a lot we can do to support these folks, including mushrooms and avoiding alcohol, eating berries and nuts, and cardiovascular exercise. And, again, anything we do to help people with this is really important. So how will Reveal My DNA help your practice and help your patients? We're going to identify if they have an APOE4 genotype through our analysis. Then we're going to have personalized recommendations for managing Alzheimer's risk factors. This will include nutrients, diet, and exercise. We're going to empower the individuals to make informed lifestyle choices. So let me give you a little more specificity here. In Alzheimer's patients, the need for DHA, choline, and uridine RNA, are all enhanced because their basal plasma levels may be below normal. And a higher dosage, therefore, is needed to correct the disease-related deficiencies in the synaptic membranes and synapses. So researchers have been able to prove that with the formulation of DHA, choline, uridine, B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin E, improved memory scores, and the connectivities between brain regions among patients with early Alzheimer's disease. Several compounds isolated from medicinal mushrooms have been shown to promote neurite growth, including those from lion's mane mushroom, reishi mushroom, tiger's milk mushroom, Ganoderma mushroom, and cordyceps mushroom. Furthermore, a hunter-gatherer diet focused on protein, lower in carbs, choline, omega-3 fats, uridine, creatine, berries, nuts, seeds, and lower in carbs, higher in potassium, and avoiding alcohol currently appear to be the best strategy for E4 carriers with northern climate heritage. Cardiovascular exercise, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week has been found to dramatically reduce the risk of E4 and Alzheimer's disease and improve lipid markers. So at this point, you might say, well, gee, Ben, that's kind of specific stuff there. So yes, it is, because these people with these genotypes went through different studies, and these studies had positive outcomes. So that's great. And we're leaning on several years of great data that had people with these genotypes, these alleles, and had, so some people did other things. It didn't work, but these are things that did work. And these people had positive outcomes in their trials. So that's really important. What about early onset Alzheimer's? Should APO status differ? No, it's the test doesn't relate that specific to when the Alzheimer's starts. As I said earlier, not everybody with APOE4 allele gets Alzheimer's, and not everybody with Alzheimer's has APOE4. But if you have an E4 allele, these early strategies are what you're going to attack. Doesn't matter when the Alzheimer's started, when it began in the body. So, or in the lifespan. right? I guess is the answer. So this groundbreaking information must be heeded, and everyone you know is a candidate for this test now. And it's important to know this: there's no drug for having APOE4. There's no good drug for early onset Alzheimer's. There's no good drug for um, Alzheimer's disease in general. The thing that we know that these lifestyle modifications, including exercise, nutrients, dietary recommendations like fish oil and cruciferous vegetables, have a positive impact. So find out your risk and then mitigate it with our actual results, no exceptions. Any questions? And I will show you, since we didn't actually show you in the first part of this presentation, I'm going to go back to the sample person. And although this person that I'm sharing now does not have an E4, it doesn't matter, because everybody here who gets this report done gets requirements based on studies and their genotype, and also gets this most wonderful, important, we're getting there, personalized DNA-based grocery list that's going to help them make changes and impact their DNA in a positive way if they can eat to these foods. So earlier, someone asked about um, free-ranged beef. In this case, we're going to talk about free-range eggs. Now, pastured eggs, comma, all of this. So free-range eggs, beef, chicken, and wild cod specifically versus farm-raised are going to always be better. And so, yeah, they're going to have this very specific direction here. Seafood and pastured eggs for the omegas. Yeah. So yeah, again, the genetic component to this is the E4 allele, and it doesn't change the risk of whether you've wanted to, whether it's early Alzheimer's or not. It's super important, and what we want to address. So anyway, I hope you've all found that very helpful.